as we know that we're here, but for anyone else that's listening, it is being broadcast on YouTube, on the Daventry DC channel, and it will be recorded as per a normal meeting. So that is the first thing. I just ask everyone to keep their microphones muted when they're not speaking, and if you could use, I think as we've only got limited people here, I can actually see everyone at the moment on my iPad, but we can either use raised hand or raised hand if you want to speak. I suggest that is probably more applicable at this juncture. We'll see how we go, if that's okay. And then we'll call you to speak. So on with the meeting, which item 1 as usual is the minutes. So are committee members okay to accept the minutes of the previous meeting as published? If you could just raise your hands to confirm. Councillor Frost, can you confirm?
Yeah, that's a yes.
Good, thank you. Those minutes are confirmed as being an accurate and true record and will be signed at some point in time as per convention. Item 2 is apologies. I've had tentative apologies from Councillor Harrington Carter, who says she hopes to be at the meeting but is suffering a bit today with some sickness. So at the moment, if we could have that as apologies, but we may strike that if she actually does arrive. Declarations of members' interest. Does anyone have any interest that they need to declare at tonight's meeting? Obviously, you can do it if and when we come to at any point in the juncture of the meeting. But if you could do that, I would appreciate it. No interest to declare. Thank you very much. And we now move to a presentation by Councillor Richard Auger, Leader of Daventry District Council, and Councillor Ian McCord, who is Leader of the West Northamptonshire Shadow Council. And I think we're just getting this the slideshow up on screen, and then I will hand over to the presenters to give us an update on continuity and legacy projects going forward from the District Council into the new unitary authority. So over to you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate the invite, opportunity to share this presentation with you. It's going to be very quick because I want to get into your questions. I'm extremely grateful for Councillor Ian McCord being with me today. He's obviously extremely busy, and to support Daventry in this manner, to have a bit of one-to-one time with you is I'm very grateful for that, and he can certainly give you some insight from his strategic position. I'd also like to thank Maria Taylor for putting the presentation together and helping me with the research. So can we move on to the next slide, please, Maria? Okay, handover. 1st of April is vesting day. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed, and nothing will change on that. Although there may be a little bit of debate about the general election, vesting day certainly is not up for negotiation. And I'm genuinely satisfied with the progress and amazed at the progress that everybody has made, officers and politicians alike, in such a difficult scenario. And so so that's going to happen. So we're going to have a few slides and then we're going to have some questions at the end. Next one, please, Maria. Okay. First of all, continuity from day one. It will be business as usual. You know, hopefully the constituents, our residents, will see no difference in services that they are provided with. It's as if nothing's happened, but of course everything has happened. There was some great grand plan of a lot of transformation going on prior to vesting day, but of course COVID put a kibosh on that, and of course we're now very much concentrating on safe and legal. That's the most important thing, to ensure that we are a viable we are a viable and a legal entity as we begin to deliver public services in this way, for hopefully for the next few decades, until somebody comes up with a new system. The vesting day is the 1st of April, and of course, although there has been some transformation prior to vesting day, transformation going on now, even in adult services. They're looking at hubs and trying to get things to be more effective and efficient. Transformation will continue from day one, and I don't think it's going to stop until we end up with a delivery of public services that is the best in the country. And no matter what banner you fly politically, everybody is determined to make it a success. We all know the past and what happened at the county council, but what's important for us is the future. We have learned, everyone has learned from the past and about how things were conducted, and that will not happen again, because I just don't think that anybody could put the public and the council through that sort of experience. Next one, please, Matt. Okay, ongoing operations. All of these things will simply be transferred. The employees will be transferred from DDC to West Northampton, and likewise the contracts as well will simply be transferred. Any new contracts that are required will be negotiated at the end of their term. Obviously, it would have been nice to get all contracts over all services harmonised, but of course we all know there are legal ramifications and of cutting a contract short. So we're doing the pragmatic and the proper thing to ensure we look after the public purse, but ensuring that services continue. And we've got the quality of staff to make that juggling act, to ensure that all services, whatever the contracts, are delivered to the people we represent. With regard to the environmental services, well, they will continue largely unchanged. And with regard to the income and revenue from our commercial property, that will continue. And of course, all that income revenue will be into the coffers of the new West Northamptonshire Council. I think the bottom line is simple. It's just business as usual. And all protocols, working practices and policies are in place to ensure that that happens. Next slide, please. Strategic policies. Well, the strategic policies, as laid down there, it's all of those existing plans will be implemented within the new authority. One thing that is quite important to know is that we will not be Daventry, we'll be West Northamptonshire. And although we clearly have a historic identity, what I'm very keen on doing is to ensure that we all understand all of our policies for all of our areas belong to all of us. And it's important that we take into account history, but understand that we are West Northamptonshire. And if we want to make any changes as a council, for whatever reason, then we have the authority and the lawful right to do that through a democratic process. But all the hard work that's done on these policies will continue to work for the benefit of our people, for the benefit of West Northamptonshire. Thank you. Please, next one. Planning policies will continue, and obviously the vesting, the conservation areas review that are going on will continue, even though they may not be completed. We have the staff and the processes to ensure that they carry on through vesting day, to ensure that there is a continuity in the work that we've done now, that it doesn't stop on vesting day, that it continues. And there are plans in place and the money is in place to ensure that that continues. But of course, Overstood Hall, which is a very bespoke DDC issue, well, the new strategic authority, the new West Northamptonshire Council, will need to take a view on how they progress that. And that will be interesting to have a larger debate looking at it in a larger area, and how and what we want to do with regard to ensuring the restoration of that particular project. Next line, please. Next. Other initiatives. Well, these things continue as normal. You know, a number of these, not quangos, are they? They're more partnerships, groups working will continue, but of course there will be a West Northamptonshire representative on them. I think these organisations are clearly aware of what is going on in Northamptonshire, and we will ensure that we have the representatives on there to ensure that we are seen as a bigger player this time. You know, it won't be a number of boroughs and districts in the county. This will be the 5th largest unitary in the country, having a real voice in these particular groups, to ensuring that we can attract money and investment for the people of West Northamptonshire. Next slide, please. Next slide. Obviously, all the policies and that will continue with regard to public service protections. They carry on as normal until they expire, or until the new council sort of revokes them or doesn't want them to continue. And with regard to the climate emergency, I had a meeting this week with Stuart Timmis, who's going to be Director of Place. Now, Councillor McCord has given me a portfolio of climate change, community safety and regulatory services. And the conversation I had with regard to the climate emergency, because we've declared one in Daventry, is that is a non-negotiable for the new authority. That has to be up front and centre. Apart from COVID, it is the biggest challenge and threat to our planet, and we need to take it seriously. And I'm pleased to say that Stuart Timmis, who's the new director, is of a similar vein, that we're going to ensure that we as a council are doing everything that we can to ensure that our activities do not contribute to the problem, and that we influence others to follow suit. So I'm really excited about that. I was really excited about his response. You know, this isn't a political football. This is about clear policies. There is a public mandate there to keep our planet clean and healthy, and we need to ensure that we do our part. Next slide, please. Project updates. Well, Reach for Health obviously is alive and kicking. That was handed over, and the athletics track will, once the weather gets better, will also have its track laid, and will be there for the benefit of the community. Obviously, we're particularly proud in Daventry of Reach for Health. That was a bit of a battle to get it done, and we understand why. But this is an important investment, and we know it's public money. But this investment could have, I always believe, not only a local and regional centre of excellence, but I think it could be a national centre of excellence, and be something that the West Authority would be very proud to have within its borders. And I'm very pleased for everybody down at Reach for Health that we were able to support them. Of course, there's always a risk there, but that's a calculated risk, and it's mitigated. But we still own the building, and it's still our property. But what's more importantly is that very vulnerable and sick people will benefit from this. And they will benefit this to the fact that they become self-sufficient. That means they're not going to be a burden on society and upon the National Health Service, because we're helping them get better, and we've got a facility, a top-grade facility, to help that process of all those with those type of brain injuries. Next slide, please. Mulberry Place, yeah, fantastic. I've been down there a few times. Obviously, COVID regulations permitted, and that's progressing well. Hopefully, summer 2021 that'll be launched, and our people can hopefully can use it. I've got a feeling there is going to be an incredible bounce for going out and enjoying restaurants. I'm just dying to take my wife out for dinner somewhere, not the usual places like McDonald's. I want to go somewhere nice, and to the cinema, and I think that there will be a bounce, and maybe this will benefit our town centres. It certainly will benefit Mulberry Place. So I'm really, we never knew about COVID, but I'm really glad we pursued this legacy project, because it's something that I think the town are going to really appreciate as they celebrate the release from lockdown and the release from this pandemic. Slide, please. Additional homes, just an update on this. 18 new properties for use for the temporary homeless have been purchased. I had this portfolio before becoming leader, and I know Maria Taylor, who's on this at this meeting, is really passionate about ensuring that we provide the basic necessities of life, and that is to ensure people have a roof over their head. And we all know about the detrimental effect that temporary housing in bed and breakfast does to people's health, both mentally and physically. We need to be a better society, and I'm so proud of her work and have supported her politically in this, in ensuring we get as many properties as possible. Not only are they a great investment for us, but they also save us money, save us an incredible amount of money. And also, more important than that, it is a humane place to put people who probably are already in a difficult and vulnerable position. So I'm very excited about that. And also the Daventry Park renovations are substantially completed, with the cafe and toilets and pathways completed, and the DDC projects are now in the planning stage. So again, really, really good stuff, good physical facilities for the people of Daventry, for the people of West Northamptonshire. Next slide, please. Okay, ongoing projects. Obviously, we've got Daventry Town Centre vision that's going on. Hopefully, I know it's not been perfect, and consultations been so difficult in COVID. But let's do the best job we can. It may not be gold standard because of our circumstances, but let's have some sort of vision that we can justifiably say has validity. And I would hope that our political colleagues on both sides of the aisle will help and support that. Of course, it will be owned then by the West Authority, but it's not run by any particular party. This is about listening to the people and coming up with a vision that is achievable, that is something that is wanted. And Daventry Town Centre, along with Mulberry Place, could well, as I said before, take a real bounce and become a real place for recreation and for relaxation for the people of Daventry. The secondary school, that's now in the hands of the Department of Education and of the EACT, and I am particularly sorry with the Toad Learning Trust. I'm particularly pleased with that investment. That is multi-million pounds of government money that we would have had to find had we not had the Department of Education come in and support that project. So I think it's going to be a great educational offer. I think it's going to raise the standards of our other schools, and I think once and for all, we're going to put a stamp on the educational attainment of our young people. And this is for our young people. This isn't for us. This isn't for the Labour, the Liberal Democrats, or the Conservative politicians. This is for the children, the youth, to give them good life chances from a good education offer. And I hope it comes through. There's no done deal on this. This is in the hands of the government, and who knows what could happen. But let's hope it happens, and then hope that we can give our young people bright futures by giving them a great education. And of course, then we have the Daventry South East Gateway Master Plan that continues, and also the wonderful Catesby Aero Research Facility. A little bit like Silverstone, this is a world beater. This is, I think there are only 2 in the world or something, and one of them is now in the UK. More importantly, one of them is in West Northamptonshire, and we will benefit incredibly from that. Not only kudos, but also the work that is going to bring in, the money that's going to bring in to boost the local economy by various organisations moving here. And who knows, they may well move closer to being near that facility so they can use it more frequently. I just think that's a great news story. And that's about it. I know it's a whistle top tour of what's we're going to be handing over, but I want to thank the officers and staff of Daventry District Council. I want to also thank the councillors. I want to thank those from all political parties. You know, sometimes we sit there and we debate our various positions, but this is we all own this authority, every one of us, and we should all be proud of this authority. And I'm immensely proud of it, and I'm just grateful that I had an opportunity to lead it for a short season. But I tell you that we will continue if we get elected, and if we have a chance and a privilege to serve again. Then I promise you certainly that these things will be keeping an eye on to ensure that the people of this area benefit from the West's new unitary authority. So that probably gives you a flavour. I don't know whether Ian specifically wants to add to that at this stage, or whether you would like to ask questions. Ian, is there anything you particularly want to add to my presentation before we open it up for questions?
Not to your presentation specifically, no. But you know, I also want to thank you all for the invitation. I think it's quite useful that we can have these type of discussions, and I know we all have those concerns, and no matter which sovereign council we all belong to, there is a concern that them, whoever them happen to be, as in the sum of the other 2.5 parts, are going to outnumber us, and therefore we've got something to fear. And I really don't think that we need to. You know, Richard has outlined all of the legacy issues and the things that are going on in and around Daventry. But you know, the way I look at these things are that good ideas are good ideas. Sound business cases are sound business cases. And if they made sense to you guys as Daventry councillors, they ought to make sense to everybody as West Northants, because what you're trying to achieve, I'm assuming, is what you're trying to achieve. So I have no plan, and there has been no plans by any of our colleagues on the West Northants Shadow Authority to help and throw out a lot of plans that existing councils have. And I know, you know, Richard has mentioned Mulberry Place, but you know, I could go back to South Northants and they'll mention the Water Meadows or the co-op site in Toaster, or plans that we might have for Brackley. There's go to the borough and they'll be talking about the Marks and Spencer site and some of the other plans they have for the Greyfriars site and other sites in and around Northampton, all of which members have invested a lot of both money, financial capital, but also a lot of emotional capital in bringing these things and hauling these stones to the top of the hill. And we all know it can be 8 years in the planning and sort of 15-25 weeks in the actual execution. So it's important that they're all there. All those schemes and all schemes that have had a base budget requirement from any of the sovereign authorities continue into the new authority. One of the things that Richard also touched on, which I think is important that we reassure our public about, are, you know, things like, I know you're consulting on your Daventry Vision 2035 and our planning policies. Now, I think you have, as Daventry has a Part 2 local plan that's up to date. I think it was around this time last year, maybe a wee bit later, but not that long ago. You got that in place. Only today, I'm sure Richard had too. We had an email from the minister saying about making sure local plans are up to date, and COVID isn't an excuse for not having an up to date local plan. So it's important that we can carry all of that body of evidence and those good policies in. And I certainly intend to look at places like Wiltshire, like Cornwall, like Durham, where they've had local planning authorities to and local planning ideas, so that local government isn't lost, because there is a danger of 405,000 people across 500 odd square miles of land that local might mean something completely different to various people. But you know, we have a great opportunity now to leverage the idea. Now, we just mentioned the Catesby Arrow, but the sister operation exists at Silverstone. And when you speak to Rob Lewis, he'll tell you, that the opportunities that Catesby offers here. We've got a massive amount of motorsport and high performance engineering expertise that we can leverage. We've got world class logistics. Brixworth and Brackley, we know, is what keeps Mercedes at the top of the leaderboard in Formula One, and we can leverage all of that. And I wholly believe that we will end up with the whole of West Northampton being bigger than the sum of the parts. And I do think that if we get this right, the rural town, the rural areas will complement the big urban centre, and the big urban centre will help complement the rural town, and those divisions will have those artificial barriers that we've been very good at building over many years will rapidly fall away. But there are some of the opportunities, housing and social care, to bring those together. Roads and planning. I'm sure anyone who might be on a meeting that sits on planning will have often thought, why can't we get a highways objection to this road? We know it's dangerous, and rather than do a desktop exercise, let's get a planning a highways officer to a planning committee. And that's not going to excite our general public in the way it might excite members, but it will. What it should do is have a better outcome, and we should be getting a better quality decision if we can actually find out, instead of just sitting there thinking them up in County Hall never understand what planning's around. We can bring those. So I think these are the sort of things where we can get real efficiencies. We can also end an awful lot of the wooden dollars, paying recycling credits from the Waste Disposal Authority being the county council to the collection authorities being the district councils. Again, all of that can stop, and we can just crack on and fill bin lorries and empty bin lorries and do that. And some of the other issues that we have created for ourselves, there is that area just beyond Junction 16 where Daventry, St Northampton and the borough currently meet. And we've all planned as part of the joint core strategy for certain numbers of houses, but none of them have ever actually triggered enough for a secondary school. And I think in general, there has been a bit of a breakdown in planning in its broadest sense, not planning in terms of Town and Country Planning Act planning, but just planning in the general sense, where we haven't been able to lift our eyes to the horizon and say, hang on a second, all of these developments cumulatively demand a secondary school, and we need to try to get one in. So I do see that we have many opportunities, that we can have a fresh start, free of baggage, and I absolutely do firmly believe that we need that fresh start now. If ever we needed it more than anything now because of the COVID operation, the COVID situation, that we find ourselves in. The whole country will be wanting a fresh start, but here in Northants we can say fresh start, and we can confidently offer people a bright future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Members and any non-members, I think we've got 2 non-members of committee here today. Is there any questions? If you'd like to raise your hand. Councillor Robertson, if you'd like to go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair. This is for either of you 2 leaders, really. I'm about to present my findings again on what we call here assignment 34, which I have to say by this time applies as much to the new authority as it does to Daventry in frank terms. It's about the way we operate in terms of delegated authority, which I've no objection to, by the way. It's just an explanation of it and my suggestions around it. Now, would it be okay, if nobody else has got any objection, if a copy of this document were sent to Councillor McCord, because I think it's important that I sow the seed in the new authority.
I would put it to the, I don't know, Ian, who's got that task and finish. Is that something to do with Councillor Brown with regard to planning and that?
Is this around? Sorry.
Please don't speak at once. Councillor McCord, if you want to respond.
Sorry, is this about, you mentioned delegated authority. Is this about scheme of delegation? Is it about something on the Constitution? Sorry,
Councillor McCord, but just it's an assignment of this committee, and the title of it is the external perception of delegated authority to refuse planning permission. Councillor Robertson is the lead on that little project. So I think what he's trying to say is he'd just like to share his current thought processes with you and or whoever might be interested going forward to the new authority.
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure, and I see Adam's on the call, that the task and finish group from that's looking at the Constitution is dealing with a scheme of delegation. Sorry, Adam, to just drop you in it there, but the delegated authority to planning officers, that's not in the least bit controversial, is it? And there's always that lovely balance to strike between, do members want to determine 90% of planning applications, or do they only want to do the ones that they think are controversial or demand to come to planning? So,
I mean, my view on it is, Councillor Robertson, and I hope no one disagrees with this, that I think you should feel free to send it to who you wish, and with any notes on it. But on the proviso that it obviously depends on what this committee actually says about it at the end of the day, because otherwise, at this moment in time, it's just your personal views as a councillor. So, but obviously, anything that goes formally through to the system at DDC will go into the mill of being put forward to the new authority. So it almost happens automatically, I would imagine.
Good ideas are good ideas, and if there are suggestions to improve things, I don't care where they come from. And I'll tell you one thing I do like, and Adam, you can pick up on this. I like the idea that this committee is called Scrutiny and Improvement. I just like the improvement bit because it sets out actually what we want to do. So, I'd be happy to steal that shamelessly as well. So those are the sort of things. If it's a good idea and it works, why not give it a go?
Mark, to bottom this one out, if Ian's happy, just send that report through to Adam, who will have portfolio responsibility for planning in the shadow, and then he can then bring that to the executive, or if we all get elected and we're kept in our jobs, then through to the cabinet to ensure that it's looked at. But
thank you,
Chairman. I see Adam has his hand up, so I think he wants to speak.
Adam, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Apologies for having my video off. I'm having some bandwidth problems here. But yes, I've actually just received today a draft of the scheme of delegation for planning. So the timing couldn't be any better. And I'd be more than happy should S&I approve Councillor Robertson's recommendations and reports to receive a copy of it so that it can inform our thinking on the governance task and finish group.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. That's great. Councillor Robertson again.
I was just going to say that that's very interesting, Adam. And I'm afraid you're going to get the report whether the committee like it or not, because it's my personal view.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson.
There's nothing like a chain of authority, is there?
I think it's people called in. They're just awkward so and so.
Councillor Ritchie.
Heard about me, have you? Huh?
No, I just have the same name.
Councillor Ritchie, if you'd like to raise your question, please. If you could like to unmute yourself first, of course.
I thought we'd get used to that by now. But yeah, thank you. And let me say to begin with, I was grateful to Councillor McCord for his remarks about localism. It's, I think, for many of us here in Daventry, it's one of the big concerns that local planning decisions are, insofar as possible, remain local planning decisions. But I have one or two questions, but just in case you two are anxious about time, you'll see that later in the agenda we have got an agenda item saying protecting the work of DDC. I think that all that would come under that agenda item Really, I can boil down to 3 questions that I would like to put to Councillor Erber and Councillor McCord may have things to do. Well, thank you. Well, I mean, the first, prayers, I hope is the simplest one. I mean, I understand what you say about budgets being simply moved in to the new unitary authority. My concern is that Daventry has at present got a budget for grants for voluntary and community organisations, and presumably that budget line will move across to the new unitary. Whether it will remain the same in terms of the size of that budget, but my concern is more whether it moves immediately and immediately becomes part of a West Northampton system. My concern is this: we have got many voluntary organisations in Daventry district that do rely on public support to enable them to exist. Now, when we become West Northants, I'm perfectly happy to accept that there are many, many more social and health problems in Northampton town, and that the lion's share of what support there is ought to go where the needs are greatest. It's how we achieve a balance between accepting that, that sort of fairness, the sort of equity of saying that we have got to help where those areas that help most, but at the same time, not too suddenly abandoning projects that have been going on for a long time, making excellent use of the time and contributions of volunteers, only to find that then they are going to be stumbling. Is there any sense, I know that you cannot guarantee, you cannot make any promises about what happens with spending decisions by an authority that hasn't yet been elected, but is there anything in your planning that would at least recognize that this problem was there and would need to be addressed? I'll pause after each question.
Yeah.
Would you like me to answer that, Chairman?
Yes, of course.
As part of the operational continuity, this happens to be one of my service areas, so I can tell you that community and voluntary sector funding, how it works for Daventry and South Northampton and Northampton is business as usual for year one. So where we've got arrangements in place to fund services, as community and voluntary sector funding, ongoing funding or budget pots, they will continue as before for year one to allow time for the new authority to consider what a overall comprehensive new funding mechanism or new approach or new strategic vision will look like for the new authority thereafter. So once the new executive leadership team has had an opportunity to get together and consider new approaches in the first few months, changes will come later, transformation will come later, but for year one, there will be some continuity. So things won't just stop. So the commissioning that we do will carry on. The grant pots that people can bid for will carry on, and they will be bespoke for Daventry. They will be bespoke for the ones in South Northampton. They will be bespoke in Northampton.
Thank you for that.
Can I come on a political view on that as well? With regard to, I was talking to Stuart Titmus about how we're going to do some of this stuff in the long term. How do we allocate limited resources? And so I think we need to make sure that the criteria is set whereby it's got to be on outcome, it's got to be on benefit. Actually, what do these voluntary organisations actually achieve? Are they achieving? Or because there are some voluntary organisations, very few, admittedly, that actually do not achieve the right outcomes for the public money that's spent on them. So it's about having the right ones. Like we were talking specifically about domestic violence and how much work we want to do on that to ensure that there is a cohesive plan, a connected plan with all the voluntary and the statutory organisations working together to protect women and men and children, anyone that involved in domestic violence, because it is a big scourge in Northampton, and it needs to be dealt with. But we need to be very surgical on what outcome do we want and how much money we've got to do that. So I think it's down to us as politicians to ensure that we get the right vision, and then if we need to, then we have to lobby and fight for maybe some of those voluntary agencies that we feel should be funded when there isn't enough money. But for year one, that isn't going to be a problem for continuity. But longer term, I think, Councillor Ritchie, it's going to be, as it is now, we continually fight those important third sector organisations that do so much for the people of our town.
And I certainly know from Certain Northants point of view, the fantastic Certain Northants Volunteer Bureau, they get much more efficiency in terms of how they can distribute money and how they can bridge other monies in. And looking after all of these organisations has to be there. And I don't particularly want to go into this with a view that there is a greater need somewhere else. Rural isolation and some of the rural issues are just as important and will continue to be as important as some of the harder issues that you might also come across in Northampton Borough area. And I think what we certainly won't be having, I would certainly advocate, is that we won't have a one-size-fits-all kind of policy. But I don't want to be setting out with this with some idea that because there is going to be a greater need or perceived greater need somewhere else, that there's going to be a sudden shift of resources from Daventry, St Northants into Northampton Borough, because that would exactly only exacerbate and have people saying, well, we told you so, about that us and them, that I'm desperately trying to make sure it doesn't actually get built in. We cannot allow that fault line to be built into our new authority, otherwise one day it will fracture.
And Councillor McCord, I think there'll be chances for the new partnerships to spring up, whereas especially, and COVID has proved that.
Councillor Ogre, I think we're probably drifting away really from. I think we're drifting away a little bit from the actual questioning, because obviously the new authority will need its own members to actually decide on these decisions. I think Councillor Ritchie's point was what happens at the turn. So if we go to question two,
I'm happy with what is happening with with year one. I'm encouraged. My second question. I know what you said in your presentation about parish councils and things like parish councils and neighbourhood plans. Neighbourhood plans will continue to exist. And I assume that if there was a parish council which at present was formulating its neighbourhood plan, there is no particular reason why it would need to think, gosh, we have got to complete this and have this packaged up, do without a referendum, and have it all finished by the 31st of March. There seems no reason why the parish council cannot simply set a timetable that ignores what's happening between the higher level councils. If that is the case, why on earth do you want to curtail all the discussion and the site of deliberate consultation that would take place around the Daventry Town Vision to get the Daventry Town Vision finished by the 31st of March? In your own slides, you listed the Town Vision alongside other projects which continue into future years. Why not let the vision continue? We have had a situation where, of course, the vision, the consultation, you admitted yourself, I don't know a huge amount about the particular consultants drive that you're using, but I know that I cannot think of any other equivalent consultants that would be happy at conducting this sort of exercise without there being opportunities for people to meet together and to discuss. Now, that can't be done, as we know. We've lost a year because of, or the best part of a year, because of the COVID lockdown. But we're talking about coming up with a vision for the coming 15 years. Is it not worth allowing that project a further stage to allow it to go on until perhaps, May or June time, when we can again have public meetings where people can actually talk together, not just respond to what the consultants put. Why on earth do you feel it is necessary to wind that up, to seal Daventry's future, Daventry Town's future, that is, simply by the end of March? It doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, first of all, nobody's sealing anyone's future, and secondly, it's not a neighbourhood plan. This is about a blue sky thinking. And having seen some of the consultation, there is a lot of views and opinions on exactly what the residents of Daventry want. I'm not too sure what more you want with regard to listening to the people and listening to their voice. I think it's right that we get this done. I also feel quite strongly that this is something, any vision should have a review period. And the reason being, because both you and I will remember in 2004, the vision for Daventry town was to have a canal arm and all the associated infrastructures to that. And of course, then we had the crash and all of a sudden it's out of favour and there was no review on it. So I think we're right to continue. I think it's been productive. I really enjoyed the meeting I went to and all the ideas that were coming through. I think we will formulate a good plan, a good vision, but I also feel with the new authority, we should always have the remit to be able to review if circumstances change. I'm not too sure what more we can gain by extending the period.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ritchie, part 3.
Yeah, I mean, we know that we disagree on this, and that I'm not certain. I would like to have been able to myself get the feedback on what it is that people have said. But more importantly, I would have liked to have seen a conversation start amongst people so that there is not just a response one way, there is actually deliberation. Meetings in which people can get together. Perhaps you should have had a citizens' assembly on it, or a series of citizens' juries.
Councillor Ritchie, sorry to interrupt you, but from my point of view here, the decision was actually made by Daventry District Council as a whole on how to proceed with the vision statement, with the vision policy. So it's a little bit out of the remit of Councillor Auger and McCord taking it forward. But obviously, all new councillors, I would say, are going to have their input in the into what they think is right for their constituencies, etc. When we go forward, I'm just saying I don't want to get bogged down in items that the two councillors here can't actually influence at this point.
I accept that there is a decision that has been taken, even if it does appear to me to be a particularly bad one.
So if you can move on to question 3, I think. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Auger said that I was delighted spoke about climate emergency and they need to take it seriously. I'm not quite sure what non-negotiable in this sense actually means. Perhaps you could expand on that. I've just been looking through we have a long report, some of it quite encouraging, some of it not, on Daventry District Council's efforts on climate emergency coming up. But one that remained red was any progress in getting a commitment from the new unitary that in its investment decisions, it will only invest in companies, in funds that are essentially green, that are not engaged in fossil fuels. I can't remember exactly how we put it. I can't find the page in front of me. But why is it that first Daventry, and it looks like now the West Northants can possibly say that, look, we're going to invest whatever we want, but we are going to claim that the climate emergency is important to us.
I totally agree with you. We need to take this really seriously, but it won't be my decision or my thoughts. This will be a council decision. And there is a debate on both sides with regard to investment, even down to the way we build stuff, the way we build roads. So is that carbon neutral, with the contracts we have with highways?
I agree, but the difference is...
Let me answer the question, and then you can come back. So with my responsibility, my responsibility, if I continue in that role, is to put up ideas on ways where we can, and I think radically deal with this problem and deal with it in a serious way. It will then be up to the cabinet and the council to decide on how far they go down the road. It's no good us debating it now, because at the end of the day, it will be the West Northampton, and we may well be outvoted, but we have to put it out there. We have to look differently on the way we're going to deal with this and try and deal with this problem, which I think is a clear and present danger to the earth, let alone the community.
Okay.
And I'm not even an eco warrior. I'm not, but I just have seen the science and know that we have to do our bit, and I will represent and do our bit. But obviously, I need the council supports to pursue those sort of goals.
Okay, I accept that. But our role here tonight is to look at what is current council policy, and to comment on how we think it can be improved or where it is deficient. At the moment, we do not have a council policy in Daventry that restricts our investments. And according to the documents that we've got for tonight's meeting, it says there has been no progress in persuading the new unitary to adopt such a policy. So it's in that context that I raise the issue. I don't doubt that you are completely on side with with the need to sort of cut our emissions and therefore cut our investment in fossil fuels. But clearly, whatever you decide, you have got to take things with you. At the moment, however, the only thing that we have got to comment on is what are actually the policies. Yeah, we don't have the policies at the moment.
Well, first of all, we are a shadow authority. We're all in interim positions. None of us have been voted to the new authority, and these plans need to be talked through, debated, and agreed by council. And just you and me wanting to change the world, we have to win the argument. So we have to look at the investments. Now, I've never had a climate responsibility. Well, I had a limited one with Daventry District, but that's not my portfolio. And it's something I'm going to go into. But there are probably a lot of things that need to be considered. But the direction of travel must be to try to, for the West Authority, the West Northamptonshire Authority, to be a friend to the climate and an example to other councils on how we need to tackle the problem. That's my ambition.
Councillors, I think I understand that, again, we're drifting into what might be, but I think the important thing is, how does the ambition of Daventry District Council's climate emergency document and policy, how does that go forward into the new unitary?
Well, that will come into my portfolio, and it will be considered. But and
I think that's all you can say, Councillor Walker, isn't it?
But it will be a decision for the West Authority makes the decision, not individual councillors. Is that
okay, Councillor Ritchie?
So
I have got to accept that the situation is probably as Councillor has put it. Of course, it is the new council that would take the decision, but that is the same with absolutely everything that we're talking about this evening.
I think the issue is
here because we're concerned about what decisions our leaders are to take, and particularly what Daventry District Council can do in its remaining months of existence to attempt to influence the policies of the new body. And that surely is the key thing for us this evening.
Chair, can I just add to that?
Yes, you can.
Daventry District Council just need to keep doing what it's doing. That's all. As far as I'm proud to be of our climate plan. I know it didn't go as far as you wanted to, but it was voted upon, and we as a council were happy with it. Is it far enough? Probably not. It needs to be a considered view. It needs to be debated, and we need to progress it with support. That's the way we're going to do it, and that's the way we'll do it with the new authority. Hopefully, we'll move forward quicker.
Okay. Any other questions? I just got a couple, if that's okay, gentlemen, councillors. One thing that on the continuation thing, it was just one item. It's the Braunston Daventry Canal link path. Is that still on the that's still on the agenda to go forward? It just wasn't. Lots of things were brought up, and I know we can't probably bring up every single item, but just to make sure. That
is this the proposed rail link between?
It's the pathway link. No, it's the pathway link between Daventry and Braunston.
If I could come in there, that is.
Is that not in your Vision 2030, 2035?
It's actually in our capital programme. I think it slipped into next year, Councillor Wesley, but it is definitely in the capital proposals for West next year. I think because we haven't got enough resources, we won't get it started this year, but it is in the capital programme proposal for West for next year.
Thank you. And then just probably, I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to answer this, but just reading this this week and last week about the possibility of elections again being deferred. Have we got any thoughts on that, as how that affects the new unitary, and are there any provisional plans being put in place at the moment?
Well, sorry, do you want to do it, then I'll share my thoughts.
Well, yeah. So I've been on a call with ministers, and there was the the ministerial statement last week from Chloe Smith, who's the minister in the Cabinet Office, and we had as she was given that, we actually had a meeting of the Joint Implementation Executive, and we had officials from MHCLG on the call, and they were all clear that there are no plans to prevent the elections taking place in May, and they were still all planning towards a May election. And then you get this, but it will be kept under review. So the plan is still that we will have a 6th of May election, and I know officers are still working towards that. If you want to then get into, well, what happens if it's not? My short answer is have a look at what happened in Buckinghamshire. So if you think back to when this pandemic started, we went into lockdown, I think it was the 22nd, 23rd of March, and Buckinghamshire their vesting day was set for the 1st of April. Buckinghamshire Council was still formed, and what happened was that there was a tweak done to the structural change order for Buckinghamshire, as there was then a further tweak done to the structural changes order for Northants after that. That changed our arrangement, but Buckinghamshire Council came into existence. Additional committees and things were set up, and it's all set out. That I am 99% certain would be the model that would be followed if there was a delay, and then some of it would probably depend on how long the delay, if there was one being suggested for, would be, because I suspect we would just carry on with the more or less the shadow existing arrangements if it was only a couple of 3 weeks, but it may be slightly different if it was, say, 6 months, if you're talking about October, November, which is some of the dates that you see in the press. But you know, if anybody's concerned that vesting day, 1st of April, go live date will not happen, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that date I think is now fixed in stone and will happen. And you know, we will have West Northants Council coming into force on the 1st of April in what is it, 74 days time.
Thank you, Councillor McCord.
Councillor
Auger?
2 days time.
Yeah. On that same point, I would just I won't add to Ian because he's summed up the situation quite right. But with regard to the running of the organisation, it will still run, and I think the proof of the pudding is that you know, we're already meeting as a shadow cabinet the directors of our various portfolios to ensure that we even though we won't be elected, we won't really have a mandate, but we will have a responsibility to start the transformation as from the 1st of April. We've got to start developing services that improve for the people. So that will continue. I promise you that all my colleagues are fired up to do that. Hopefully the election will be in May, and then we'll have a mandate, or we won't, depending if we get elected or not elected, and then we can really then get down to work. But I don't think things will stop if the elections are delayed. There's some really good people, Chair, working on that shadow executive. I've been really impressed with the way everybody's pulled together, because everybody, and the opposition colleagues as well, everybody wants this to be a great council. And, you know, between all of us, I'm sure we'll meet.
Thank you very much, councillors, and really appreciate
Chairman,
it.
Can I just, I've just, while you were talking, I just looked up the budget. So on page 55 of the budget on the capital programme, there is a line that says Daventry to Braunston cycle track. Is that the one you're talking about? Right, so there's £719,945 in the capital programme for the proposed draft West Northamptonshire budget. Well, that's in the 2021 budget from what I can see. And then presumably that comes through into 21-22. So there is a line in there that says Daventry to Braunston cycle track.
Thank you, Councillor McCord, for doing that for me. I much appreciate it.
Page 55, if you want to go and have a look.
Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very, very much for speaking to us tonight. And as I said, please feel free to disappear and go and have your meals or whatever it is that you need to do. And thank you very much again. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, people. We move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the rolling work programme. We're looking at updates from members and the following task panels. The first one is youth democracy. Well, Councillor Harrington-Carter is obviously not with us again tonight. Again, I'll be chasing, and I haven't got any report from Councillor Harrington-Carter. So that's going to have to be an abeyance of the decisions we come up with as we go through. So it moves on to Councillor Robertson, which is assignment 34, the external perception of delegated authority to refuse planning permission. Now, I understand, obviously, I'm pretty sure that Councillor Robertson had decided previously that he'd come to the conclusion that he was happy with that, but obviously we've heard some other words tonight. So I'm handing over to you, Councillor Robertson.
Well, muted myself. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, basically, the idea, which has already been circulated, I believe, by Catherine, was simply that my feelings on the subject, because I happen to believe in democracy, are that delegated authority to refuse is slightly undemocratic. Not very, because there are very few of them, quite frankly. And it's also a very useful time-saving device, but we don't have to bring everything to committee, including things that are going to be refused. However, I do think there's a better way of doing it. And that better way, as outlined in the report, is to have some sort of supervision over the refusal. Now, it would still be the officers that did refuse a planning application, but they would be required to bring it before a subcommittee or even a single member of the planning committee for sort of to oversee it, not to vote on it or anything like that, but just so that we know what's going on. We do get that information, I know, by a written report in advance of the meeting. However, I just believe that that it can be a little bit distressing for those who get turned down by officers rather than by the elected representative. And that was the entire premise, really. Of course, I understand that by now it's far too late for Daventry to do anything about that in reality, because we're going to do it. I think we've only got one more meeting of the planning committee anyway. But perhaps Maria could answer that. She's going to in a minute, I'm sure. But the fact is that I wanted to draw the attention of Councillor MacLeod to the very idea itself, just because it's going to get handed on soon. And we've already heard that it's not going to be handed on because nothing's going to change. But it's just putting the idea in the minds of whoever the portfolio holders will be when it comes to vesting day.
Councillor Robertson, could I just ask you a quick question? Have you actually submitted a report? Because I actually haven't seen.
Well, yes, I looked it up, and Catherine sent it to me. In fact, well, I assume she sent it to everybody. Is that not the case?
No, Councillor. You actually, yeah, you actually haven't submitted the report to this. You were going to actually write up the report and submit it.
The report is written up, but the issue was it wasn't in quite the correct format or something. I believe that's the case.
I think that's what it was, but it needed to be submitted by you through.
Okay, I'll liaise with Catherine after the meeting and get it sorted out. You'll definitely get it this week.
Well, just so we know, just going forward, we have one more scrutiny improvement committee meeting before vesting day, and we have one more. I think we have two more council meetings before vesting day, don't we? So, anything that we do has to be approved by this committee to go forward to that, and it's how we do this on this committee. But we may come to that at the end of this element of the discussion.
Fair enough. As I said,
but we do need to. But we need to just to say something on that. I mean, I would actually just throw something at you, which I just wonder whether you've actually considered it. But there is a call-in procedure on planning permissions, isn't there? Is that part of your discussion?
No, not really. There is a call-in procedure, but I was always told in my 6 years on the planning committee that councillors should use that very, very sparingly. And in fact, I think there's only been about 2 in the last 6 years. Maria will correct me on that if I'm wrong.
Maria, have you got any comments you can tell us? You're still muted.
I'm fairly sure there's been more than 2. Yeah, it's happened quite a few times on my. I would say every other committee would have had a members call in when I was looking after planning. They're quite frequently member call-ins on committee.
Do you think so? I can barely remember one. I can remember 1 or 2. They were quite often dealt with by non-members of the committee. In fact, councillors calling them in rather than members of the committee.
I think the issue you have to be careful of if you are a committee member calling in is how to word it without being seen to be neutral. Because of course, as a committee member, you have to keep your powder dry.
Yeah, so that's one of the very good reasons for not doing it, isn't it? But,
yeah, I mean, I'm just saying it probably should be part of the thought process, because I mean, I know that I've had discussions with my fellow ward members, and fellow ward members have actually used the call-in process to ensure that planning does actually discuss the planning permission. That's just a point for your report, really.
Yeah, the only one
or a better way of doing it.
The only one I can really remember, Chair, is what's happened in my local patch, which is Crick or Barbie or somewhere. But the others, well, Maria tells me that there have been more than I thought, but and I'll accept that.
Maria, could I just clarify something? That we wouldn't always know on the planning committee that it had been called in as such, would we?
Well, it generally is included in the report, but it wouldn't be, it would
highlighted.
It would, you wouldn't make a big song and dance of it, but it would say under the comments generally that a member had called it in.
I do remember 1 or 2 happening that way, but that's very many.
Anyway, Councillor Robertson, if you're promising us a report, if we could have that report as quickly as possible, so it can go forward to the senior management team, and they can make their final comments on it.
The report's already written, and
can I just at this point bring to your attention an email that was circulated by Tony Gillett, the monitoring officer today, which was actually sent to you, Mark. Councillor.
Yes, as I was just alluding to, so we might come to a decision at the end of this on how we proceed.
Yeah, so I think we need to bear in mind that next committee is the last committee for this group. There won't be a council meeting beyond that, really. So we need to make a decision really how to carry things forward beyond this meeting. So
one of the extreme problems I've had is I'm unable to address the new system. In other words, the internal email system of the council, because I requested IT to set my system up, and of course they're not there. Well, if they were there, it didn't happen. It did happen for the, oddly enough, for the Shadow Authority, but not for Daventry. So, and when I've rung them, there's been no reply.
I can assure you, Councillor Robertson, IT are very much here and working for us every day. So
not working for me.
Okay, guys, I think we're getting onto a slightly different one there. So
I'll take some information before you go and we'll see what we can get sorted out. I'll make sure somebody's made aware that you're having IT difficulties.
Thank you.
You haven't been able to set up since we changed systems, is that what you're saying?
That's correct. I've told most people, including most committee secretaries, know this by now anyway, but most of the committees I'm on know this. But it is still a fact. So I would like something done about it. It'd be very useful.
Okay, so anyway, we'll look forward to your report, and then we'll discuss at the end how we actually handle it as a committee. The next one, Councillor Ritchie, which I think we've already touched on tonight, but if you'd like to give us your verbal update, that would be good.
Thank you. Some of you may remember that a way back early in November, I wrote a long email suggesting that this particular this particular assignment is probably going to be better dealt with merely by having a conversation with the leader of the council. It may be that some of you hadn't seen it. I had a problem finding it myself because in the new system it was tucked away into one of these special boxes for scrutiny improvement mail. But looking at the issues that I raised were, the consultation processes in the future of the town vision and what happened to the town vision, the issue of voluntary organisations and how they were going to be protected, and issues around localism. I also put in the protection of the Abbey Centre, but given that the Abbey Centre is not being protected in the sense of being kept for voluntary organisations by this district council, it's not necessarily something that we therefore need to worry about here. It's a lost cause. But these are all issues that we have already discussed earlier in the meeting with Councillor Larriger, and I just feel there's nothing much more that I think that could be gained. It's been made perfectly clear what the thinking is on the consultation on the town vision. We've been given some sort of assurance about voluntary organisations, and nothing is certain about the move towards localism. But many of us are, with other hats on, are involved in the discussions taking place in the new unitary about what structure will be there, and how we, insofar as is possible, make sure that there is some form of local decision taking. So my suggestion in view of that would be that we regard this assignment as having been overtaken by events and other discussions.
Councillor Ritchie, so maybe just going back to what Maria Taylor mentioned earlier, suggestion by Councillor Gillett is, or Officer Gillett, is that this committee, instead of actually submitting reports per se, I think this is correct, isn't it, Maria, that submits basically almost a discussion document? Is that what? Sorry, I can't see the email again at the moment because I've got two devices open and I can't see a third.
I'll just read it out if that's okay.
Yes, the last. I think it's the last. His suggestion at the last paragraph. I think
So,
it is, isn't it?
the task panel work is open at the moment, but it would make sense if all the task panels were closed at the March S&I meeting. It may be the best way forward for a single S&I report to be presented to Council as a scrutiny position statement for noting, and then for members to lobby for any significant issues to be included in the West Northamptonshire Council scrutiny process. Something for the committee to consider. So
Did you hear that, Councillor Ritchie, and understand it?
I heard it. I'm trying to understand what its relevance is to this particular assignment. See, as far as I'm concerned,
I was going to say, what I think it's saying, Councillor Ritchie, if I could, and I'll let Maria Taylor put me right on this. What I think we're saying is on this that basically we can take the elements of the ongoing assignments that we think are pertinent and relevant, discuss them at the final S&I meeting, and then send that forward to Council for consideration by the West Northants Authority. Obviously, it would be anything that you put in that report would be the agreement of the S&I Committee to going forward. So what I'm saying is I think it would enable you to have the opportunity to have your say in a formal document. Is that correct, Maria? Is that what Tony's alluding to?
I think so.
Yeah.
It does run through my mind that if I were to write a document saying that the new unitary should put back the vision statement, whatever has been produced by Daventry District, and say that, look, this actually needs to have a different sort of consultation before we as the unitary accept it. If this committee were to support me in saying that, there's not a hope in hell that the council would actually accept it. So I just see it would be a rather futile exercise at this stage. We've been given the assurances, as many assurances we can reasonably have, about voluntary organisations. We can't. I don't think we can go further than that. And there is no point, I think, in saying once again that we're very concerned that the change to the much bigger authority is going to entail a loss of localism. That has been said over and over again. The discussions are ongoing. It's not as if we're asking for, for something new. And as a result, I just feel as you know, I'm very happy to have my say, but I've had it.
Just a thought. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy. I'm more than happy that S&I has its say going forward. And again, S&I having its say, if that's shot down by council, it's as any decision for council. But I'm just thinking out loud on say even an amended option to your proposal, which might be that the vision goes forward, but it's the West Northants Authority, as Councillor August suggested, has a review period and may even look at revisiting this on the basis of further updates or something along those lines. I mean, there's an infinite number of opportunities.
Thank you for that suggestion. I think that actually makes quite a lot of sense. I will in a few weeks I will produce a paper. I expect by this stage I'm probably a one-person task panel.
And I don't think that's an issue. But what I would suggest, and what I think is really, really important, is that anything you produce, you circulate it to S&I as early as possible, so you can get your feedback. Because what we don't want is we can't have a 4-hour debate on a paragraph in it. So it has to be succinct and obvious, and for you to understand where the committee is on it, for you to have your say. So if we we'll leave it at that at the moment, and then maybe come back to it. Or Maria, do we have to agree on that format as an S&I committee that we actually take these reports forward on that basis? Because if we did that, we could agree that that assignment actually happens. Is that the best way of doing it?
I mean, that was just the monitoring officer's suggestion on the basis.
Yeah. And I thought it was a really, really good suggestion. And I think Councillor Ritchie is agreeing as far as his goes. So, all right, okay, we'll do it assignment by assignment and then see where we are. So, Councillor Ritchie, do you just want to propose that your assignment is completed on that basis?
I will complete it on that basis, yeah.
Okay, do the other members agree? The other two members agree? I agree, yeah. We'll agree to do that then. Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. So if you could circulate that to us as soon as possible. Councillor Robertson, if you could do the same again with your report, that would, just to finalise it, that would be good as well. Okay. Councillor Frost, that's over to you on your assignment 36, which is DDC's response to COVID-19. And on the previous discussions that we've had over the last few weeks, I suggest that that's the best way of handling your assignment as well. But if you want to give us an update on where you are, that would be good.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's been going at sort of full pelt. We started off meeting with Ian Vincent, and we're going to end the session of meetings with him this Friday. In between, we've met with Maria, Tony, Audra, Edward Cook, Michael Pullen, Roni Job, Neil Smith, Martin Wilson, Kevin Fagan, Alan Burns, and Richard Auger. I mean, to cut long story short, yeah, it's been very interesting. I mean, there's not much point, is there? The whole point of the report is to tell you what we found, but suffice to say that it's been great. People have been generous with their time. People have been open and honest with us, which we very much appreciated. It's a cross-party panel, which I think is important because there's sort of nothing political about this pandemic, is there, or shouldn't be anyway. Certainly not in our response to it. What can I say without wanting to give too much away? Tell everything now. There'd be no point in reading a report, would they? But it's a lot has happened. And we're going to get something well in advance of the next and last scrutiny improvement meeting. Is that okay? That's really what we wanted to hear, Councillor Frost. The fact that it sounds like you've been really, really busy on that, and well done on that. That sounds like a real effort in the number. Really impressed the number of people that you've managed to get hold of in these times as well. So thank you for doing that. Ably supported by my by your colleagues, Ken and Jonathan Harris, I must say. Yeah, no. So that's all. Is that all right? Just by way of an update. Yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, if what you're saying is you're progressing it, and you've had the interviews, and you're putting the report together. It's whether you're in the time frame, whether you're happy to do that on the basis that we just discussed in terms of a document that goes forward. And I think that's probably the best way of doing it, as we sort of alluded to previously. I think. Yeah, it's unlikely. As well. Not much point, is there, in making any recommendations? But it's more of a sort of a reference point. I mean, Councillor Auger made, I guess, an understandable point that why are we reviewing something that's possibly or fearfully not even halfway through. But the fact of the matter is, this council's rapidly drawing to an end, isn't it? And we don't have the luxury of being able to do this in 6 or 12 months' time. No, and I think. Yeah, I think we understood that. We understood where it was and where we were going, and obviously the longer it goes on, or any secondaries, the more there is to learn. So, again, Maria, what is the actual final date for submission for the next meeting? It's the 16th of March, isn't it? But for us to get something to full council, what's the final date? There's a possibility that meeting might be moved, isn't there? The meeting might be moved to the week before. Our scrutiny meeting. Yeah, so the final meeting actually might be the 16th. 9th of March. So the 9th of March. So we need everything in 2 weeks prior to that. Is that correct? So what date is that?
Yeah, so you're talking late February. So we really do only have a month.
Mhm. So is everyone clear on that? That we must have these documents in by the last week in February.
Ideally, the 19th.
The
19th of February.
The 19th of February. Do you think that's is everyone happy with that? Everyone understands the ramifications because that has to go in through the process.
We'll aim for Valentine's Day and gives us a couple of days slack. No.
Okay, just if everyone's got that, then that's what the committee decides, that we will follow the monitoring officer's advice, and we will put a document there will be a document available from this committee to put forward to council on that basis. So are we okay on that, everybody? Can we just sort of show our hands just to get the agreement on that? Right, yeah, the committee agrees to that. Okay.
Chairman, just to interrupt you a sec, in light of what I said at the start of this meeting, is
sure.
Would that be all right? I don't want to, the meeting will still be quorate in my absence, won't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very good of you, and I really appreciate it. And thanks.
Okay, Councillor Ross, thank you very much for being there for that report on that update, and good luck with your parish council meeting.
Thank you. Cheers.
You probably need it. Okay, we're on to implementation activity on the progress of recommendations. Marie, do you want to take us through these?
Yeah, can do. Just I've got the paper version, so
Uh-huh.
trying to do complicated screen shares.
Yeah, has everyone got this in front of them on their papers or screens? I've got it on my screen. So
yeah, so on the first one, page 11, assignment 20, the planning applications. The first on the first page, they're all green anyway. They were implemented some time ago. On the next page, number 4 is pending. That's due to be implemented in the summer. That work is going to be done as part of the West Northamptonshire strategic plan.
So to be clear, that has been passed through for the continuation process, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we okay with that, members?
And then the rest on there are green.
Yep.
We can move on to assignment 26, which is parking in Daventry Estates. Similar story. Number 3, the third recommendation, local strategy manager, that has been put back to summer 2021 because of the priority for resources is the West Northamptonshire strategic plans resulted in a delay in preparing the infrastructure document for that one.
Right, but again, that is part of the continuation, yeah. Councillor Ritchie.
Yeah, I sort of fully understand the logic in having this bit of work pushed that it is done on a West Northampton basis. I don't quibble with that. I was just looking over at page 16, in which the final recommendation is in green, and Nura has been green for a while. I raise it because I was approached just in the last few days by a resident of Cowper Road asking about grass concrete. If the final recommendations are simply it's unlikely to progress unless DDC were to agree funding, should there not? I mean, you know, we might be talking simply about how we word this. It would finalize the thing if it simply said that DDC has refused to consider funding, in which case that's the end of the story. But this leaves it slightly open. It is unlikely. It is going to be one. I just feel there's a decision here that should have been taken that actually hasn't been taken.
I think you never know, Ken, if a case was put forward where somebody hadn't got the means to do, you know, to put an application in to drop a curb or something, and there was a welfare case or some such, there might well be a case to put something forward, and DDC might agree something. But I think by and large, in terms of a whole scale reinforced concrete stud verges in Cowper Road, I think it's unlikely, given that the county council says it's doable and possible, but they haven't got budget, unless there was some particular hardship case or something. It's not going to progress, basically. So there is a solution, but it's unlikely to go ahead.
I accept that is the position. I don't like that position. I would argue against it, but it is the position. But somehow the wording here just leaves it as an open question. And I just feel
I think,
that if it is the view...
I think you're right. I think you're right, Councillor Ritchie. I think we should probably, looking at it again, I think you should probably say that funding unavailable from DDC.
I mean, you're right. We've got 72 days left, and I think it's fair to say we don't have we won't even have a cycle now to put a proposal through to DDC to find the budget.
Exactly.
Absolutely right. I can change that update to DDC has not identified suitable budget, so this will not go ahead. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So are the members happy with that? I am.
Yeah.
Councillor Robertson, yeah, if we could. I think it's only right that it was a recommendation. I mean, that was one of my task panels, so I do think it's right that it's not fudged. I think Councillor Ritchie is absolutely spot on that. So I'm not even sure it should be. Does it go green because it's decided that we're doing nothing with it, or should it actually stay as unresolved? I'm not sure.
Well, I suppose you've completed it in as far as you've taken it as far as it can go.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
No, you're right. I think that's an old comment, isn't it? As opposed to.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Ritchie.
No longer in limbo. We're at the end of the line. You're right. Yeah. Page 17, antisocial behaviour. So we have the first action there is orange. Work that had commenced but has been delayed because of the pandemic. So that antisocial behaviour and hate group will be picking up again when they are diverted back onto that work and they're not dealing with this stuff. So that's the media campaign stuff will be picking up again, but later on. So that first recommendation has been delayed, and I think we were hoping it would have been starting to be picked up by now, but with the second wave, it's been put back again. And the other two actions on that one have been completed.
Mm-hmm. Everyone happy with that? Yeah.
Climate emergency is generally looking healthy. In the background, our environmental officer, she's gone off on maternity leave, had a baby girl. She's been replaced. The new environmental officer is Lee Taylor, no relation, and he's a very enthusiastic young fellow, and he's picked up the gauntlet and carrying on with this. So if you notice any sort of changes in language or anything, we've got a new author working on this. The RAG status is full red, 20 amber and 30 green. So I think it's fair to say since February 2020, when council agreed climate emergency action plan, we've made some progress, and including we now have got those 6 extra actions that we've added on to the end for completeness to the original 20 that were agreed by council. So I'll just pick up the ones that in the red text as usual. So 3.1 on page 19, it's due to happen after vesting day, but it's this about urging West Northampton Council to set targets for the reduction of carbon emissions. So informal discussions with the borough and South Northampton are taking place, and the climate change is definitely included under the PLACE programme for future Northampton work. There is a new place director in post now. That's definitely part of that remit. And as you heard, even bang up to date information today from Councillor Auger, those conversations are definitely happening. And the county's drafted carbon reduction strategy for January Council. We did have some input into that, as did South Northants, and that's hoped to be the basis for what will be West Northants policy. So there are people dedicated to this, carrying on the work and, you know, holding the banner for climate emergency. Taking you forward to 3.3, DDC represented Northants Climate Change Officers Group meetings by the Environmental Improvement Officer. So that one's carrying on to keep that alive. 3.5, we've had confirmation that the collective energy switching can continue under West Northants using our existing contract. So we're very pleased about that. These are small but important things, you know, especially now that it's not just about people getting better rates, but actually they're getting renewable energy. So that's even better, which I know was one of your big wishes, wasn't it, Councillor Ritchie? 3.6, we've turned that one green because actually Robin Hood Energy is no longer operating, but we did actually get to the bottom of investigating that one. It will be now something that the new unitary could consider a version of its own, but Robin Hood Energy itself is something that's fallen by the wayside. That was something that was happening in Nottingham, hence the name Robin Hood, I think. But the concept of providing cheap electricity from entirely renewable sources in an organisation the size of West Northamptonshire, you would have thought we would be able to explore that further once we're all up and running. So I would hope that once everything's settling down, we'll pick that up again under the Environmental Officers Group. 3.9, the timescales move to allow the new officer to explore opportunities for the methods of public transport for villages and rural areas. Clearly, this is really difficult right now because, of course, when you do see buses, they're empty. You know, they're being paid to drive around, but of course, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because there's very few people out and about. Vulnerable people can't use public transport, but nevertheless, they're out there for when people are really desperate to get around. So it's a very tricky time for rural transport, community transport, and transport generally. So
yes, I'll just let members know. Just for instance, last night at Daventry Town Council, we reviewed our community transport grants because we're basically paying for buses that are running at less than half capacity a lot of the time, with nobody on them. So it's a really difficult one, looking after people's needs to get out and about, but actually charging the community for not doing very much service. It's very, very hard. Sorry, I just thought I'd interject there.
It's a terrible dilemma because if they go away post-pandemic, how do you get your infrastructure back in? And similarly, we know how challenging it was for the community transport provider because they'd got lots of their volunteers were also in vulnerable groups. But this time, the community transport provider have carried on being able to provide their services through this lockdown, but they certainly had much bigger difficulties back in March. But these are both being investigated, 3.9 and 3.10, by the new officer. But transport and cycleways generally are very challenging, but the new officer is focusing his attention on those in the coming months. 3.11, all parish councils were contacted in December 2020 and he's had discussions on tackling sustainability. So that's really positive. He's very, like I say, he's very enthusiastic and linked into all sorts of modern things. Likewise, he's contacted schools and colleges in December, and that's all looking very positive. Is looking to expand the scope of the borough's forum across West Northamptonshire, which will include parish councils. So that's something that's also been picked up since he started. We had a nice little overlap with the previous Environmental Improvement Officer as well. The other red one here is 3.16. So this is the new unitary needs to consider the green credentials in its treasury management strategy alongside security, liquidity and yield. I think that's simply that we've just not been able to have any time with the Chief Finance Officer, either the new West Northamptonshire one or our own one because of sickness. That's literally been the issue. She's currently poorly, but that will get picked up. It's on his list. So it's slipped, but it's not gone away. So there's a lot of Treasury issues to be concerned. It's quite simple for us for it to make a decision about buying paper that's green. That might be a little bit more expensive. It has a slight budget impact, but when you're talking about investing multiple millions, having the impact that has in terms of your yield, could have a really massive impact on the organisation's finances. So it's a much bigger conversation. So there's some work to be done on that.
Yeah. Sorry, paper is always, sorry, it's an interesting one to me. It comes from the print industry on what is green paper. It's always a massive argument as to the huge resource that goes into recycled paper as opposed to replant. Oh, it's massive. Sorry, I won't bore everyone with that though.
I've been looking at with my husband looking at pension schemes to invest in recently, and there is even just looking at those, and the council doesn't just invest in pension schemes or anything like that, and it is an incredibly complicated area, short, medium and long-term investing. So I know that's going to be an incredibly difficult area to get through. So it's still on the list. It hasn't gone away, but we just haven't got to it yet, and we need to get in. We need to get some time from very busy individuals who are putting budgets together right now. So I think I think December 2020 was probably a bit ambitious, but it remains on the plan. The officers remain in post, and we will get to them. So read for now, but not been forgotten. And then other updates. Page 28, 7.4, again, regarding contacting technical colleges and relevant commercial enterprises, all schools and colleges were individually contacted and have been invited for ongoing conversations, and meetings are being held in this month with individual schools. And there's a dedicated West Northampton sustainability social media channel being explored to engage residents in sustainability initiatives under West Northampton Council. So we're looking to get that going, ready for a launch in or around vesting day. So that's the sort of influence that our new, very keen lead Taylor is bringing to the party with his other colleagues from the other councils. Prologis were contacted in December, so that's one of the big employer areas for DERF sustainability discussions, and is also connecting in with other networks around there. So that's so there'll be some more information put on there. Likewise, next page, opportunity for dedicated West Northampton sustainability social media channel. There'll be more information there for residents. Bit more of there. Some of this, it looks slightly repetitious here. It's just that those contacts with the schools link into these other actions. And then on to the next page. Likewise, this one links also into the social media channel. And then on page 17, exploring whether the commercial projects are viable under the Smart Export Guarantee, which was introduced in January 20. COVID has taken attention off this work, but it's going to be an important area of work for the new council. Apparently it's not feasible under the current council. So we've actually had to stop looking at that one. And that's to do with the Smart Export Guarantee generally hasn't taken off. But I think we'll have to pick that up under West Northampton Council. So it's just not something anyone has been able to progress anywhere because it's targeting councils and they're all busy on pandemic stuff. But it's, I think we're going to be given more time to pick it up when the pandemic's over. On page 20, Daventry Farmers Market was hosted in September. and we are exploring the feasibility of more green market stuff with the town council. Again, that's been slightly hampered with the extra lockdown limitations, but I think everyone who's been local will realise that it's seen a bit of there's certainly more interest in Daventry market, more stalls, more variety coming locally. So nice to see a bit of a resurgence there, wouldn't it? Page 21. Sovereign councils are open to expanding existing forums. So we have been in touch with NCALC and the parish councils, and there's definitely, from all of Lee's contacts with the parish councils, it seems there is definitely an appetite for a forum. So we're really quite excited about that, which I think is probably what you expected from that one, isn't it? Isn't it, Ken?
Yeah.
The on-street residential charge point scheme is progressing. There's going to be an installation in Daventry and Welford. The Long Butby one seems to have fallen flat, which is a real shame. Originally, it looked like it might be on the Market Square, but that couldn't be agreed. And then they explored the library car park, but that couldn't be agreed either. It's just the devil's in the detail always on these things. But having these conversations with so many villages, we are hopeful that we'll be able to identify some more. It is quite intensive, but it's worth the effort, because actually we're going, in the next 10 years, we are going to have to make sure there are public charging points. The other thing that Lee's doing is having conversations with companies that will go out and do the same, because actually commercially people are buying electric vehicles, and where you know, companies are going to be looking to go out there and fit charging points. So they need to know where these might be acceptable. So we'll be working with parishes to identify suitable spots. So it won't all be coming from public funding or anything like that. So these are conversations that we all need to be having in a mixed sort of economy. So yeah, so some interesting progress happening. Hence the comment there about private rapid charger operators and electric forecourt operators, to see if we can get some external investment and some conversations going. An exciting little win we had there. There was some work done at the Chapel Lane car park in Daventry. So we made sure when the contract went out, we've made sure there's some trunking and everything been put in there, so that we can get some electric vehicle charging points put in. So even though we haven't actually got a budget or an operator yet, that's half the battle. So when we get put in for a grant funding, we know it's going to be really easy to connect it to electric, because we've already thought about putting the infrastructure in. So some little infrastructure wins when we were thinking about it. That was the value of the Greener Workforce Group. Page 25. Aiming to accredit West Northampton as a sustainable food place in Spring 21. That's pretty ambitious. We are exploring the community larder stuff around food poverty. That's going to be a long-term discussion as part of an overall food project. Mostly at the moment, the focus is food parcels for vulnerable people during COVID, but there is hope to expand it beyond that. So it is about reducing food waste and people knowing about good recipes and healthy eating and everything as well. So it's a broader food project. And we have had a really hugely successful response to the Second Homes funding. We managed to commit for Warm Homes Fund. So the money we didn't spend on Warm Homes Fund, we've got this, what do we call it? Action on Community Change, community grant, a new one that we introduced, and we've had dozens of applications submitted, and we're turning those out. And what we're hoping to do is get lots of social media out on those, because that's quite inspiring for people as well. I think it's up to £1,000 for community groups and parishes, and they, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, we've had a really good response. People are really excited about that. So that is definitely in the spirit of what we were hoping to do at the beginning of all this. And then finally, tree planting opportunities. I hope I can say this right. Miyawaki afforestation methods can apparently be used to promote rapid forest development, which basically means you put lots of different varieties of trees planted really close together, and in relatively small spaces, you can grow forests really quickly. So we are looking to see if we can't find some sites, get some funding, get some trees, get some volunteers, and create us a few little forests. So I said, let's make sure we include that in here, because we know we've got parishes keen to do this stuff.
Can you have little forests?
You can.
Are they not called copses or woods?
Probably, or a spinney. Where my dad, there was a spinney in Watford. Yeah, it might be called a spinney, but you can grow a forest, because by planting them at the same time and really close together, you can grow a forest really quickly, and it can be, you know, local varieties of trees and all sorts. So we're exploring that rapidly. So you could extend an existing wood or forest, or create a brand new one in a relatively small space. So that might be a really good way to get some attention, but also meet some of our tree planting targets quite quickly. I'm so keen on this. If we can get a couple of these going before resting day, that would be fabulous.
Maria, could I just ask a question on that? I actually hadn't seen this come through to parish council, but I may have missed it. But obviously that's me, Daventry Town Council. But I'm thinking it's like obviously Borough Hill isn't part of the Town Council's remit. That will be handed over to West Northampton. But walking round Borough Hill, it would just seem an ideal place for quite large scale tree planting in small sections, if you see what I mean. So not to obscure all of the views, but you know, there's some fairly unusable land. I know it's agricultural. I know there's cattle and sheep put out on it, and there are difficulties. But I mean, the
main will be, I can't remember, quite a bit of it is scheduled into monument.
Yeah.
As long as it avoided that, then we could explore that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I mean, I know we've got the target of planting trees, and you know, it's like where do you put them where they don't cause an inconvenience and actually somewhere nice. And I was just sort of felt it's like, you know, up there there's those old buildings in the corner, for instance. They could be obscured. You've got there's maybe even obscure the actual buildings that sort of do spoil the view, for instance. I mean, I'm just saying it's a great idea of your little mini forest, and I was just wondering. Obviously, it's out of the remit of the parish, but it is within the remit of the West Northants.
And they don't need planning permission, apparently. Just landowners' permission. A lot of them are not development.
Yeah.
So we got really excited about this one at our Green and Healthy Workforce group. So we might have some little forests dug by volunteers safely during COVID. If not before April, maybe soon.
Councillor Robertson.
I was just going to ask, and I think you've answered it already, the land in question here is going to be possibly private land. Yeah.
The aspiration on tree planting is what you can get anywhere, isn't it? It's not, that's the whole point. There's not that much land in public ownership. So to meet our very ambitious tree planting targets, it would require some of that to be on private land, or most of that to be on private land, actually.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you. I've got a great big long list of questions, but I will only look at the ones that I think that are actually, you know, critical to this.
Thank you.
Looking through this report, of course, there are things that I wish were done earlier, or things that were done more fully. But in the work that I've been doing with Councillor Frost and his little group on COVID, in the meetings that we've had, one thing that has come across very strongly are the pressures that fall on some not all, but and some members of the council staff. And the name that keeps on coming up is that of Maria Taylor. So, you know, given the circumstances, I'm not going to dwell on the things that I wish had been done, but haven't been done or haven't been fully done. But one or two questions. I noticed various references to the idea that Northampton Borough Council is going to have a council meeting that takes decisions on what are effectively DDC policies. Now, you know, I know enough. Are we told it was 72 days before the distinction between the two is disappears? But it just struck me as sort of slightly odd, and I would be interested in, you know, in a response to that. Let me ask a couple of perhaps related questions at this stage too. The Northampton group, is it the Climate Emergency Forum that they have? I think it does make sense if it's out of that and try to expand it. Presumably that would be the same group that would be there for our parish councils that wanted to get involved. But I've got to confess that while colleagues in Northampton have told me that this is actually quite a successful innovation in Northampton, I haven't actually seen any details about how it works. And I would love to see something that was effectively, you know, a sort of public scrutiny and improvement group that was dealing on climate emergency issues for the new authority. And I just be interested to know to the extent to which Northampton perhaps sees this as a method of disseminating its messages, or whether it actually sees this as a pressure group that is there to make sure that it keeps on course.
Yeah,
I'll pause there before.
Do you want me to come back on that, Councillor Wesley?
Yes, please.
I apologise if it wasn't clear in my update. The idea was that all of the climate change officers and also some planners and other people in the West contributed to the borough councils and the county councils' work so that they could become the basis for the West Northants climate change stuff. So rather than have like 4 different bits of work, if the Northampton Borough stuff was put together on the basis that it would, because they were taking something in January anyway, so that in order for that to become something that could form the basis of a West Northants strategy policy action plan, they've all contributed to it. So it's actually going to be fit for purpose to be the starting point for West Northants. So it's deliberately been done thinking ahead to make it a bit future proof. So it's taken into account. They've got a well-established forum in the borough, and they're looking at opening that out. But I do think parish council stuff is probably going to be more like NCALC will expand that out, and that will work the other way around, because of course all the parishes, probably something like 150 odd, 160 parishes, are in South Northants and Daventry district, and there's only a few in Northampton. So that will be rural dragging Northampton borough in, whereas the sort of forum, such that it is, that's in Northampton might be pulling the other way potentially, but it's
but there's so much scope for having what would be a single forum that has within it a section that is, you know, that is parish councils. Yeah, a lot of the people who are activists or concerned within Daventry district are concerned because they're individuals that are concerned about climate change, but they are also parish councillors.
Yeah, but there's a few things going on around parishes. So, for example, it's within the remit of the Housing and Communities Assistant Director to be the conduit for contact with parish councils. So it may well be that whatever ongoing communication channel there is with parishes will include this. So, you know, while things are still forming, it's hard to say where this is going to fall, but certainly I would expect it for now to make sure it's being picked at both ends. but there's, you know, looking at this dedicated West Northampton Sustainability social media channel will also complement that. So that will be in addition to the forum that the borough already do. So hopefully they'll all, you know, they'll link together.
I was delighted to see those references to the West Northampton social media channel, whatever you call it. That that sounds good. I do wonder though about the future of DDC's own website and the climate action pages that are there, because I feel that these climate action pages are actually very good. But I do wonder how many people have actually visited them and actually been there to, you know, to use that as a source of information. And I just wonder, you know, are we simply going to give up that entire site, or how is that going to be part of something wider, and how are we actually going to do it, and how do we actually broadcast it? Let me just, before you respond to that too, I remember we had a difference of view over the adequacy of the little leaflet that went out last year with the, you know, with the council tax information. And I just wonder, we have got another council tax demand that is going to go out very soon. Is this not an opportunity for something that really puts our green agenda there, that actually advertises the fact that we have got a website with all these things that people can be doing themselves, that goes beyond simply talking? I mean, it's great now that we can talk about the fact that our big switch project is a green project, but there are other things I'm sure that we could be saying there, and I just wonder whether that is that, you know, an opportunity. You've got to have the mailing anyway, and therefore the cost of reaching people is so very much less than it would be that if it was a mailing on its own.
I'll have to take them backwards so I remember which way around. But that is what goes out with the West Northampton bills is a decision for the West Northampton Shadow Authority. So that will be conversations to be had at the forthcoming meetings, and I think they're in the next couple of weeks. So we don't really get much say in those. I know they're still having discussions about how that works. There's nothing to stop you making that proposal to the leader of West Northampton Council if you wanted to, but I don't know what the mechanism is to put reports there, to be honest. I'm completely.
But I wonder if there's a way we're going to, you know, explore it to put it so that they're aware that that is there as a suggestion, even if it goes as far as Councillor Erger, given his. I don't know. Is he actually in charge at the moment, or, you know, have a role on environmental issues?
Yeah, it's just that they're not our council tax bills now.
I understand that. Yeah. Yeah.
But websites, from day one, there will be one West Northampton website, but each content for the current 3 local authorities and half of Northampton will be sucked into that. That is all happening. So our content won't disappear, but it will be tailored. When you go into the new West Northampton Council, you'll be directed to suitable content by postcode initially. So there might, you know, some stuff will be generic and apply to everybody. Some stuff will be tailored specifically because some policies are only relevant to you if you're from a certain area. So the content won't be lost.
Can I just mention too, I'm delighted to hear that options for rural transport haven't disappeared from the agenda. I accept it as a hugely difficult one. But, you know, I think it's important that it is there. From other conversations I've had a long time ago, I believe that Ian McCord might have an interest in this. And, you know, I think that's something that just needs to be, you know, kept on the table. The grant applications, I wonder if you'll let us know just what the period is for making applications and the period for actually putting the projects into effect. I asked because I've been approached by people who had planned to make an application, but they were unable to meet the plan what they were going to do because of COVID, and felt that because of COVID they wouldn't actually be able to get out and plant trees or whatever it was going to be. So I'm interested in that, and sort of finally, as I say, I think it's great that there is this food sustainability issue that is being raised within West Northamptonshire. It's a quite separate issue from food poverty and the need for food packages. It is entirely about how this actually relates to our use of land and emissions. And that is a thing that I think that we need to get back on the agenda again. I remember having a discussion when we had a session with councillors and were presenting our climate emergency report. I can remember some councillors going on and on about how it wasn't to be, we weren't going to have a vegan or vegetarian market in town centre. It was all about well-produced beef, well-produced meat from good animal husbandry techniques and so on. Well, not long after that, there was an academic report came out that said that, good organic beef produces just as many emissions as sort of, bog standard meat. It's, the issue is the fact that it is animal husbandry, it is animal rearing on ground that could be used much more efficiently for other things. And these are long-term messages, and of course we're not going to make everybody into vegans. But it is something that we mustn't be deflected into thinking that this is merely a sort of food poverty issue. I'll restrict my comments there.
They were comments, weren't they? I don't
well, there's a question about the grants,
okay.
and
the time frame on the grants, Maria. I think Councillor Ritchie asked.
Yeah, if I don't know the specifics. So if you've got, as far as I'm aware, you could just put the application in for. If there's a specific query, just send it through to myself or through to Denise Hackett, and we can deal with that. I don't see any reason why somebody shouldn't put an application in if they're a community group or a parish. If in the months to come, the restrictions will be lifted. The spirit of the grant is that if you're going to be able to do this as soon as the restrictions allow, then there's no reason why you can't have this grant. So I don't know why somebody would have been put off.
Thank you, Maria. If we could move to Councillor Parker, who has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for letting me speak. I think the thing here is, I think Councillor Ritchie was talking about putting literature in what I call the rates bill, for want of a better word. I don't know if there's going to be another Daventry calling before the end of March, because I think that's actually the place for these things to go, because they actually do go into every household and you can put more in them. So I think that's the media we should be using, because it does go to everybody. So that's what I would actually put forward, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Maria, do you know if we have another Daventry calling?
I know there's one last one. I'm not sure what its deadline is, but if Councillor Ritchie would like to send me a list of what I'd like to see included in either the council tax bill or Daventry calling, I can make those inquiries on his behalf.
If you could do that. Councillor Ritchie, you happy with that? Thank you very much. Okay. Any other questions, points? No? Okay. 1 year post-implementation activity reviews, 28 sale of tea deco houses in Middlemore to be assigned to a member of the committee. I'll propose that I'll I'll take this one on because everyone else has got their projects to their reports to finish off. So if you could send me the relevant documents on that one, Catherine and Maria, that would be good, and I'll have a look at that for us if the members are agreed with that. Councillor Robertson and Richie, yeah. So that's down to Chair to look at that one. Portfolio holder. Do we want a portfolio holder attendance at the last meeting? Members. Councillor Richie.
I wonder what the point would be.
That's why I'm asking.
You know, we could mark the scorecard from what they've actually done. But there's no point at that stage in telling them, you know, what they ought to go off and do when they're going to be out of a job.
Yeah, I was thinking on that. That's why I asked you. I didn't know whether anyone had got anything in particular that they wanted to harangue somebody about or praise somebody about. So, Councillor Robertson, are you in agreement with Councillor Richie?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I was going to say more as the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, from what we've heard tonight, much has been achieved at all, really, apart from this, let's carry on as we were.
Yeah. Okay, we'll if we're all agreed, then we won't hold a portfolio holder accountable to us at the next meeting. So I don't think there's any other urgent business. Just one thing, Maria, that I've noticed, and I have to say I didn't notice before. We haven't got the target figures, have we? We normally look at the strategic targets.
Yeah, the quarter ended at the end of December, so that it's just too early. They haven't gone to portfolio.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Maria, for explaining that to me. Councillor Richie.
Let me ask, is there any proposal then to have a sort of end of term report? You know, we've been sort of monitoring all these things for years, and do we just reach a point in which this sort of passes on, or is there going to be
There's always an end. There's always an end of year. There's always an end of year report, Councillor Richie, of some sort. So yeah, we'll put that together. Sorry, Maria, are you speaking?
I'm hitting the wrong buttons, sorry. We were looking at provisional figures for Q3 monitoring today. Technically, we won't actually be producing year-end figures at all because, of course, we won't have anyone to report them to. And there won't be a corporate strategic plan for a while, for a start, will there, for West Northampton? No. Be under development. So when we report them, they will be the Q3 monitoring, and then they'll also have a comment in there projecting forward what we're expecting the year end to be and any pertinent comments. So we're going to be doing our best to present them like a end of year report. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we'll see what we say when we see them. I think that's the point in what we say on them. So as there's no other urgent business, that brings us to a conclusion, I think. So thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you. Good to see you, Councillor Parker, and thank you for your input at the last minute. I thought you'd gone to bed for 1 minute.